Thanks for joining us at the 2025 Zero Emission Fleets Reconnect Conference. These conference presentations are proudly brought to you by Plug-in BC. Joining me here right now is Cian Carroll. He's with BlueForce Energy. Thanks for joining me, first of all.
No bother. Thank you, Andrew. Thanks for having me on.
And just to get things going here, could you tell me what BlueForce Energy does?
So we do renewable energy solutions. So that's your charging systems, your battery energy storage systems, your renewable energy solutions, so your solar panels and your wind turbines. But what we specialize in, the crown jewel of the company, I call it, is our EV conversion systems, our electrification solutions. So they're designed, developed and produced in-house, so they're fully customizable, and we gear those mainly towards fleets at the moment because it's a massively underserved market.
Yeah, we've been hearing from people all day and, going through all sorts of speakers and some of the stats about, how, in some places the EV kind of, public share might be something like, let's say 50%, but then the fleet share is like 2.
Yeah.
Right. So it, like you're saying, it's an incredibly underserved proportion of all EVs. Yeah. And you mentioned that BlueForce specializes in fleet EV conversions.
Yeah.
For a fleet manager who might be watching or listening to this, that's a phrase that, they might approach with some trepidation. There might be a lot of kind of apprehension about it, And just to kind of break that ice a little bit, can you share any details about some of your current projects? What types of fleets are kind of showing the most interest?
It's a real broad spectrum at the moment, which is great. And even in the last year, it has grown massively. But obviously, if you're classical transportation, so a big one, transportation, municipal fleets, heavy machinery, it's mainly any industry that uses large-scale vehicles, heavy-scale vehicles. We do have a full range of electrification solutions for the full F series, so the 150 to the 750. We're nearly getting more interest in the 550 than we are in anything else because it's lower size of the heavy duty. They're used in so many different applications, but again, there's no real viable replacement on the electric side. So here we have BlueForce's fully converted F150. So this used to be a gas guzzler, and now we've stripped out the original ICE engine. We've got our fully electric, chassis-specific electrification system inside here.
Cool.
And with that, it gives you a 93 kilowatt-hour battery, which gives you about 350 kilometer range. You have higher torque than what you get from our original system, higher towing power, incredibly high horsepower. You still can do everything and more that you could do before. On the interior then, we make minimal changes. We take out the original shifter, put in a new electronic shifter, and we put in a small internal screen which gives you your state of charge and your range.
Where are you seeing the conversions gaining the most traction, or do you find it's kind of like an even spread?
I wouldn't say it's an even spread, no. I think it's more in transportation. That's kind of out of a lot of the customers we have and a lot of the clients we have, it seems to be mainly in transportation. It's somewhere you're going to make the biggest impact if you do go green, and you want these vehicles to be reliable as well. So you need to have really heavily reliable vehicles on the road for that side of things.
And I'm curious, I mentioned off the top, some folks might approach this kind of stuff with trepidation. One of the things that I always like to ask folks who are kind of deep into this, EV, ZEV world is, what do you say to somebody? What do you say to a fleet manager or something like that, or an operator who is thinking about taking that plunge, thinking about finally committing to doing that, but, they're worried about, there's all sorts of things to worry about.
Yeah.
But, how might you guide somebody to make, as informed a decision as possible?
What we've noticed really is people are I wouldn't say apprehensive, but they'd be intrigued, but they want to know more. They want to know more information. They want to know that these systems are reliable. Obviously, they're taking a big step in going electric, and then because of the electrification side, the conversion side is a lesser known market. They're even more kind of, unsure of it. But once they come out to our showroom, they go through the whole walkthrough. We talk through the full systems. They get to test one of our vehicles. You can see a massive turnaround. They drive one and they're like, okay, yeah, I get it now. I understand that. And then when they hear the price point as well, they're much happier.
There we go.
Yeah. So here we have our retired BC ambulance. And again, this is fully converted as well. We'll say this is generation 1. So it does have a smaller battery pack, only has 50 kilowatt hour battery pack. Well, you get about 150 kilometer range from that. And this is just kind of a proof of concept rather than a final product. Again, it's lovely to drive. It's a really nice system, but the baby really at the moment is 150. So for this one, we do have a dedicated system for the ambulance. It'll be a higher range. You'll get a 300 kilometer range from it. And then the battery packs are stored where the old gas tanks used to be.
Oh, okay.
So we don't change anything in the chassis, we don't change anything in the cab, we don't change any of the safety parameters. It'll all stay the same, so you still reach those BC standards for safety.
And as demand for fleet electrification is growing naturally, companies that are offering these services have to grow in tandem with that.
Yeah.
So, what I'm curious about is how is BlueForce planning to scale its operations? Are there key partnerships? Are there going to be new service offerings, geographic expansions? What's down the pipe a little?
So our big focus at the moment is our Powered by BlueForce collaboration network. So we're building out a network throughout North America, Canada, and the US. To have certified installers spread out nationwide and in the US. And that'll it'll give us a bigger scope of projects. People will have more access. Say we had a customer in, Ontario. Instead of having them to deliver all the vehicles here, we'd have our installer there in Ontario, which we have signed recently in ARC Motors. And then recently as well in Vernon, BC, we have Pedwatts Auto Marine, who are now part of our growing network. And we'll have more announcements on those soon as well. And then from there, we're looking at opening a battery packing plant. So everything will be packed, designed, developed on the battery side here in BC. And then long-term plan, we'll have our green energy industrial park.
And, it's exciting to kind of see these industries, not build themselves up from nothing because, there's obviously, blueprints, there's what's come before, but it is a brand new kind of feel. Yeah. And it's interesting to me because for businesses that, might be a little bit more wary or want to kind of take a more tentative look at things, the real kicker here is conversions, right? So for folks who are not, quite ready yet to get brand new EVs, conversions might just be the ticket for them. Where do you see the biggest market opportunities for this kind of work?
I think it'll be a big portion of it will be the fleet owners who have drivers who are apprehensive about going electric because they're used to driving these vehicles. They're used to the feel of them, the specific vehicle. Some of them drive the same one every day and that's their vehicle. They don't really want to give that up. So if they can go electric, and it is kind of just like dipping your toes in from going full fleet electric. You can have one vehicle, it's still the same. The interior is going to be the same. It's going to feel the same. So I think that's kind of a good way of getting into it.
And with this kind of future-looking outlook that we have now, we're really trying to see what we can do in the next 5, 10, 15 years. I feel like every time we do one of these conferences, or every time we gather to talk about this, invariably, some portion of the technology has been radically changed since the last time that we all met up.
Big time.
So are there any emerging technologies or, research developments in the conversion space? Because this is not one that I think people are really paying too much attention to. Are there any emerging technologies that really excite you that are coming?
It'll be the battery side. The battery, once we get solid state, that'll be a huge game changer. Even the difference, as you were saying, from this time last year to now, solid state was like, oh, solid state, wouldn't it be great? It's like the dream thing. And now you have like EV manufacturers, OEMs, actually putting it in place. So it'll be only next year or two where a solid state is more readily available to everybody.
And for those who don't know, what is a solid state battery?
It's a battery that'll have higher density, it's lighter, it's smaller. So again, you could have a battery pack with the same dimensions as something that's, say, lithium phosphate, and it'll be able to go further on a single charge. I think that's kind of people's main concern really is the range. So once they know they can go further on a single charge, they don't have to worry too much or get range anxiety, then that'll be great for the general public and to get people's confidence in these systems as well.
And kind of in tandem with battery technology is energy management. And energy management is probably not as sexy a thing as
Yeah,
batteries tend to be.
yeah,
People, batteries tend to hog the spotlight when it comes to EVs and,
yeah.
zero emission vehicles. Is there anything in energy management that is, intriguing to you or that you're kind of looking at with an eye to like, that might be cool?
I think for the fleet side, it's definitely the telemetrics, knowing about the vehicle, knowing about the driver's habits, getting all that information. How far is the vehicle, the GPS, what's the battery life, where's the closest charger? That will be really interesting for the fleet side, because then if you have those driver profiles, you can tailor your driver to specific vehicles. So if you notice one driver is too heavy on the gas and it's draining the battery compared to another driver who's getting an extra 20, 30, 50 kilometers out of it, then you can really tailor that. So for the fleet side, fleet managers, that's something that's quite exciting.
And, when you talk about data and, performance tracking for, converted fleets, you're mentioning how key data really is in this whole new advance. You covered a couple of examples there, but how does BlueForce use data analytics to track the performance of the converted EVs? Are you noticing any trends, on a broad scale or comparison to brand new EVs that you think are interesting?
Nothing drastic, which is good. It's
Yep.
consistent. We know exactly what we're going to get. So at the moment, it's been nice and steady, which is good. People are adapting to them really well. They're adapting to them quickly. People who are apprehensive about it, you can see then through the data that they're actually adopting it smoother and they're getting into it quicker than they normally would. Just getting people used to even plugging it in to charge it. You can see the adoption rate is a lot smoother and a lot quicker.
And, we've spent this time kind of talking about, this transition going, we're converting, legacy, ICE fleets over to EV. Would you be able to just give like a brief kind of, a Coles Notes, a quick version of what a conversion looks like just on a single vehicle? What does that entail?
Yeah. So it essentially, for us anyway, at BlueForce, because these systems are designed specifically for the specific chassis. So we'll take the F150, for example. We have a chassis-specific conversion kit for that, our electrification solution. So what we'll do is we'll take out the original driveline, we'll take out the original gas tanks. Your new batteries will go in placement of your old gas tanks. Your new motor will go where the original engine was, which will then connect to your transfer case, to your original drive shaft. And then you'll have your extra kind of like 4-in-1 controllers, onboard chargers, extra batteries, all the other kind of stuff will go into the engine bay. So it is a lot more cohesive than people think. Yeah.
And this is one of those things that, sometimes I'll see, it's always fun to see stories. People were like, they'll convert like an old, Volkswagen Beetle or something to an electric model. You mentioned right off the top almost how, that the Ford F series of vehicles is kind of seeing the bulk of this thing. Have there been any kind of surprises for you in terms of what people have been asking you to convert?
Not necessarily, no, but I think a slight surprise would be people coming up and saying, where were you 5 years ago? Kind of. Even today, we've had one guy come up and say, 5 years ago, I'd have been really interested in this, but now I'm not anymore. Whereas for us, on the fleet side anyway of electrification and the chassis specific side, it's a budding industry. I know the classic and the vintage, people have been doing that since as early as the 90s. And again, that's something we do want to get into, is the classic and vintage side of conversions. But I think it's the fact how many people know about it, for such a long time. I think that's what's interesting to me, definitely.
And I always bring a lot of these conversations back to talking about this made up fleet manager who is a bit reticent. Doesn't really know, they're not sure they want to get in on the brand new EV wagon. With all this, one of the things that I think a lot of people have noticed about EVs is how their internals, like the actual, the driver's cabin, if you will, tends to be a little bit more streamlined in an EV. And I feel like some people kind of thrive in the chaos of traditional ICE cabin. With these conversions, how much does that internal space actually change?
Minimal. You'll rarely notice the difference. Again, we take out the original shifter, which will be behind the steering wheel, we'll say, and we'll install a small pinwheel, which will just change your gears. We'll install a small internal screen, which will give your state of charge and your range then as well. And that's it. People barely notice the difference. It'll still be the same turning over, unless the customer now wants a full change in the interior and they want the big Tesla screen and they want all that stuff, then we can offer those kind of updates. But most of them are like, no, keep it as simple as possible, because our fleet guys, they want it the same. They change the driveline, but leave the interior as comfortable and as original as possible.
And, I do want to just touch on your specific role here. So with BlueForce Energy, you're the organization productivity project manager, right? And that's not a job title that I've come across very often in all my time interviewing people like this. What does the organization and productivity project manager do?
God, it depends on the day of the week, Andrew. I do a lot of public representation, company representation, a lot of client relationship development. I'd have my own specific clients, and then projects as well, project development. I'd have my own project team, and then some business development, and then involved with sales and it's kind of a jack of all trades, master of none, we would say.
This is something that I've had percolating, and now that we're kind of getting towards the end of the time here, I can finally justify asking. You got to have your guilty questions every now and again. Do you have like an idea? Like, do you have a dream vehicle to see kind of roll through the door that you might never really thought that somebody would want to convert it to an EV?
I might get some hate for saying this
Ooh.
the original hot rodders, but I'd love to see like a Trans Am come true.
Oh
yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, my neighbor back home in Ireland, his brother had like 67 Trans Am, and it was unbelievable. But something like that come through, where you can still put down an incredible mile on it and have it as your daily driver, that would be pretty nice.
And, bringing up the Trans Am, I was kind of really hoping that you would bring up like a classic car like that, because it kind of shows you that this kind of tech, this kind of stuff that we can do now, we can do this to vehicles now. This isn't, only for the Ford F150s.
No, this is for everything. So we want, essentially, if it has a combustion engine, whether it's automotive, non-automotive, heavy machinery, mining equipment, marine equipment, construction equipment, whatever it might be from whatever era, we believe we can develop a solution for that.
And final question to you. I want to kind of open the floor to you in case there's anything that you want to say that you feel is important for people to know, either about you or the work that you do, or for BlueForce, or where you see things going. What do you think is important to get out there into the world right now?
I think it would be more so kind of on the education side of things. At BlueForce, we are developing our Certified Installers program as well in collaboration with some local institutes. So we'll be announcing that hopefully soon. But again, it'll just be the education, getting it out there, and then just letting people know that we are open to any project that comes through the door. We're happy to sit down, chat about anything. If people want to come to our office, try out our vehicles, they're more than happy to do that.
All right, Cian, thanks for coming by. Thanks for chatting
Andrew.
with me. Much appreciate you taking time out of the day of the festivities to hang out with us.
Yeah.
And I hope to chat with you again soon.
Nice one, perfect chat. Thanks very much.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel for more updates on fleet electrification and other sustainable transportation solutions. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on the Go Electric Fleet Show.